I've got one place I want to talk to you today from, and hopefully we can change something in our lives. I don't feel like it's a proper use of our time to get up and come to church and sit here and go home exactly the same. I think when we come here, man, there's something that we can pick up, that we can use, that we can take with us, that we can use to make our lives better. I do this every week because my goal is to make all of our lives better. I want the best possible life for you. And I think most of you, that's what you want too, right? So today we're going to talk about something that hopefully we can change and it'll make our lives better. This is probably, and I say that loosely, this is probably going to be my last message out of Modern Family. And so we're just going to, swing for the fences today with it, all right? Where I'm going to talk to you today, the verse I want to talk to you from is Proverbs chapter 22. And Proverbs is a book. Most of these Proverbs are written by Solomon. And Solomon was the wisest man that ever lived. That's a pretty good thing, right? But if God grants you your wish to become the wisest man that ever lived, then probably what Solomon has to say in here would be useful for the rest of us, the way I look at it. I think it's pretty wise to take advice from the most wise, correct? So today I want to talk to you from Proverbs 22, one verse. We can handle one, right? Well, here it goes. Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Is this a law of God? I want us to get hold of this. Is this a law of God? No, it's a proverb. It's a proverb of Solomon's. The idea behind a proverb are these are the statistical probabilities of life. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he probably won't depart from it. Okay? Now that doesn't mean that if you do everything right, your kid won't be a jackwagon. You know how I know that? Because your parents did everything right. And you still turned out like you did. Right? We can all make our own choices, right? So this isn't a law, but this is a probability. This is a proverb, and it's so important because I've seen this happen so many times. But here's the problem with this verse, and this is what I want to address with you today. Bring up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And to generations, this means take your kid to church. Get your kid saved. Make sure your kid says a prayer. Make sure your kid gets baptized. Make sure all of these things, right? But this has nothing to do with religion. I want you to understand that right up front. This has nothing to do with religion. So what would it look like to bring up a child in the way he should go? Is it good to take our kids to church? Yes. I would say that being in church on Sunday is way more important than anywhere else we can be on Sunday. It just is. Bringing our kids to church, one of our goals, I don't know if you guys realize this, but the goal, the purpose, the function, whatever you want to call it, the slogan, the lifeblood of our children's ministry of this church is one thing, and I want you to get this. That kids love church. That's it. I don't care if they learn anything. I don't care. All I want them to grow up knowing is I love church. If we accomplish that, we will have the greatest generation of children that ever came out of the church. Because if kids grow up loving church, in our minds somehow we tie church to God. And when we have a generation of people right now called the nuns, it's an epidemic. In our culture and our society today, there are more people that claim no religious affiliation whatsoever. They're the nones. And it's the largest, fastest growing group of people in the world. They've walked away from it all, and the one thing they say in common is, I hate church. I hate church. To which I'll say, you just hadn't done the right one. Right? I don't want our kids to be that next generation of nuns. I want our children to grow up loving church. So the function of our children's ministry is that our kids love church. And the thing that I'm most thankful for in this church is the handful of people who have committed themselves to that purpose. You guys don't understand, but there's probably not 10 people who take care of all of our children's ministry. It's ridiculous in a crowd this size, honestly. Our nursery, man, we barely have enough people to even have nursery. Because I think we miss this idea of train up a child in the way he should go, and he's old, he will not depart from it. If you grow up from the nursery, our nursery kids should love church. Our children's ministry kids, they should love church. Our youth, man, you should love church. You should look forward to it. The goal of our church is that this is the greatest time of your whole week. It's the goal of our church. Is that when you come in here, this is the greatest time of your whole week. It's the most peaceful time. And a lot of you are like, man, that last song didn't sound peaceful. But sometimes you just got to let it go. You know what I'm saying? You can't just hold that in all the time. And some of you know what I'm talking about. But this is a place of peace. This is a place of joy. We want you to smile. This is a place of love and acceptance. There is no judgment. There's no condemnation in here. We truly believe what Paul wrote as he wrote in Romans, that therefore is no condemnation. There is no condemnation. Now, we don't feel the need to condemn anyone. I just don't feel that need. I've never had to have anybody talk to me about my sin. It's the craziest thing ever. But we think somehow that we need to point out everybody's sin or else they just won't know, right? I've never had that. I've never had the need for it. You know why? The Spirit of God's real. He's real. And when the Spirit of God is within you, among you, you don't need anybody telling you anything, right? We know. We just know. So why should I have to condemn you? Look, you have to live your own life. Judgment, we talked about this a few weeks ago, judgment's ongoing. We understand that in the presence of God, in true light, everything is revealed. And some of us suffer loss. And some of us have reward or gain. And when we go through these things, man, the idea behind it is that when we suffer loss, we make adjustments and corrections and we get back on the right track. Now, the reason we're here is to encourage one another and to reveal and show the teachings of God on what the right track looks like, because sometimes we just don't know. But we do know what we're doing is just not working for us, right? How many of you guys have come in and you don't know what you need, but you do know that the thing you're doing just isn't working for you? That happens all the time. So that's why we're here. We're here to guide and to help us to walk along the right path. We're here to encourage you to raise your children along the right path. I talk to people all the time, and they have adult children who are real messed up. And the one thing they tell me, and this is consistent, is that I wasn't always like I am now. I changed. But my kid grew up in a home that wasn't like our home is now. My kid was raised in a home of chaos and abuse and of addiction and of self-centeredness and of not caring and all of these things. And so So my kid is off on their own path now, and they're raising their kids the way they grew up. And so what do? We stop and we pray for them because we pray that God will reveal to them a different way of living. We can't go back, like we talked about last week, we can't go back and change the way what we've done, right? Our lives are our lives, but we can start now and we can live different, can't we? And so today, if I told you, man, let's raise up our kids in the way they should go, let's get on the same page, and you might look at me and say, well, I don't know how to do that. What is the way they should go? How should I raise my kids? And it's not just religious things either, man. We need to raise up kids who are not entitled. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we got kids running around today that know how to scam the system because that's all they've ever learned. That's not raising up our children in the way they should go. We should raise up our children to take personal responsibility. I think personal responsibility is the biggest missing piece in our world today. Nobody wants to take account for their own lives. Nobody wants to take account for our own mistakes. We're raising up children who we tell them is somebody else's fault. We're raising up children who don't know how to lose. Man, when I was a kid, you learned how to lose pretty quick. Nowadays, we can't let kids lose. It hurts their psyche. Everybody's a winner. Look, everybody's not a winner. Look to your left, look to your right. Everybody's not a winner. Trust me. How many of you guys would testify with me that you lose more than you win? And to train up kids who don't know how to lose, aren't we crippling them? And to train up kids who, when they lose, it's somebody else's fault, aren't we crippling them? Somebody else needs to take care of me. Somebody else needs to be responsible for me. But somewhere along the line, we have to raise up kids who know how to take personal responsibility. You made a D on your math paper. You made an F. You made a 10 on your math paper. My daughter did last week. I got a little note home. I was so proud. 10. I'm like, 10? I don't even know you can make a 10. And you know whose fault it was? It was hers. It was her fault. I don't care if I should have done homework with her. I don't care if my mom don't know how to do math in 4th grade. How many of you guys struggle with your kids' homework? Golly, man, that stuff's tough, isn't it? Like you need a math degree to do 4th grade homework. But whose fault is it? Ella, she goes to school and she don't get her paper signed. Whose fault is that? I mean, as a parent, our kids are 9 years old, but I'm not telling her it's my fault. Because it's her responsibility to know what her homework is and to get her paper signed. It's her responsibility. And when she fails, I'm not blaming her teacher. It is not our teacher's faults if our kids don't do well in school. It is not our faults if our kids make bad grades. They have to learn to take responsibility. We should, as parents, learn to help our kids. We should be there. But you know how we should be there? You're not playing that video game until you understand your math homework. Not till you finish it, because, man, Ella can finish it. Right? How many of your kids can finish their homework? Like, man, they are quick. It's like, did you finish all of that? It's finished. Done. How many of you guys check your kids' homework? It takes a while, don't it? I despise having to work all those problems, especially the story problems, because you have to actually think. I despise it. But I take responsibility for that. And then I'll look at her paper and say, no, you're not finished. And then we sit down and I'll say, look, it's not that you did this, it's that you don't understand this. Because, and that's what I've been trying to get over to Ella, if you don't understand this in 4th grade, you will never pass algebra when you get to be in high school. You'll never understand calculus. If you can't do adding and subtracting of fractions, then you're not going to do algebra. You have to understand this. But then when we look at that, isn't that the way life is? Isn't life building blocks? Don't we pick up one thing and we have to master it, or if we don't master it, all other things we're going to struggle with? I went out to the ballpark a lot this summer and saw a lot of competition. And it was amazing to me how many kids were looking for something to blame when they'd strike out. Something to blame when they would lose. It was shocking to me to have a 9-year-old get in the car and say, we lost because the umpires, and I was like, whoa, wait a second. You lost because the other team was better. You lost because you don't practice enough, because you don't like to go out in the heat and practice. You lost. Take some responsibility for your own actions. But where are they learning this stuff? That's all I want to know. I have a theory. Like, if you guys have been around here, you know I have a ton of theories. I have a theory that there are no bad kids. I just believe that. I hear parents all the time, my kid's out of control, and I look at them thinking, I don't say this to you, but I'm saying it to all y'all at once. My kid's out of control. That's because you're out of control. You're out of control. Our kids don't do what we say, they do what we do. We don't take responsibility for our own lives. Wherever you're at in your life, whose fault is it? You know what? I'm the one who decided when I was 22 years old, 21 years old, to drop out of school. My dad told me I could either go to class or go in the Marines because I was never coming back to his house. He was serious. And so where did I go? MCRD San Diego. Man, I just couldn't take school anymore. But that's cost me in my life. You guys have been to college or didn't go to college or dropped out of college, man, it's cost you. It's cost you. Maybe you started something, an apprentice program, and you dropped out and you decided to do something else and something else, something else. And it's funny how life just keeps coming, don't it? Like, you never thought you would end up in this place, but life just happens to us. But you know what? I never blame my parents for the opportunities I missed. I don't blame my parents for how my life turned out. I don't blame my friends or the influence or the school system. I don't blame the government because I didn't have any money to go to school. I don't blame anybody. You know what it is? I made a choice. I made a decision. I made a decision. And I take personal responsibility for that decision. Celia and I had a kid when we were younger. I think I was like 25 or so. And let me tell you, man, 25 is not old. You guys that are under 25, you're still young. You're kids. Just enjoy it. Because the decisions you make, they're all dumb. They're going to be dumb. You're going to look back and you're going to go, what was I thinking? Because, hey, testify. Anybody, you don't get to testify unless you're over 40. Right? You can look back and say, man, I was dumb. Like when you turn 40, you go, it's amazing I'm still alive. It's amazing. It's shocking. We make bad decisions. We make bad choices. But we have to look back and we have to say, you know what? I take responsibility. I take responsibility for that. And where I'm at today, I make the choice. I make the choice on where it goes from here. I take responsibility and accountability for my own choices. When Celia and I were younger, we were like in our 20s, 20-ish. We had a kid. Now, when you don't have a frontal lobe and you're raising someone without a frontal lobe, it's a bad situation, right? It's amazing. Like, hospitals should check your ID before they let you have a baby under 25. It's amazing any kid lives. I mean, it just is, because we're not responsible. Everybody's like, oh, when I have a kid, I'll be responsible. Oh, yeah, that works out. That works out. And some of you guys are young parents, you're like, oh, he don't even know what he's talking about. Wait, man, just wait. You're going to do something so dumb with your kid, you're going to be like, oh, my gosh, I'm surprised I didn't kill my kid. I'm surprised my kid made it through this. So irresponsible. So we had Justice, and man, we made so many mistakes with her. I mean, so many mistakes. And I take responsibility for those mistakes. It wasn't anybody else's fault. I made the choices, I made the decisions. And we do these things with our kids. But I learn from them. And I haven't made those same mistakes with Ella. I've made more different ones, but not like we did with Justice. But through it all, we tried to bring her up in the way she should go. We tried to teach her about real life. We made mistakes with her in discipline, and we made mistakes with her in maybe overconfidence. Just as if you've ever met her, she's a little confident. And so, but we encouraged her to be her own person and those types of things. So when I look at her and the way she is, I think we prepared her for life. And I would change some things, but we still have to take responsibility of our raising of her. I think all kids are just empty vessels. And I think we determine what goes in them. And so if your kid is just out of control, man, what have you put in them? You know, if your kid doesn't feel love, what have you put in them? If your kid has to perform for attention, what have we put in them? And so we have to look and say, you know, what responsibility do I take in how my child is growing up? That school is not responsible to raise your kids. I want you to understand that. That daycare is not responsible to raise your kids. I want to tell you something else. That children's ministry, that nursery are not responsible for the spiritual growth of your kids. You have to take personal responsibility. We have to take personal responsibility. We can't look around and go, who can I blame for how my kid is acting? Who can I blame for how my kid is turning out? We have to learn to take this personal responsibility. Now, as we take that responsibility and we start to shift and we go, okay, wait, my kid's growth is my responsibility. So I have to teach them how to become a good student, right? It's their responsibility to become a good student, but it's my responsibility to teach them to become a good student. It's my responsibility to teach my kids, to bring them up in a way they should go. How should they go? I got a few things that really, I believe, are very important. One, I told you, is personal responsibility. Two, I think that's missing is honor. Honor. We have to teach our kids honor. Honor is absolutely missing in our culture today. But where do our kids learn honor? They learn from us. There is a rampant movement in our world today that's anti-law enforcement. Don't come talk to me about law enforcement. I'm not your person you want to talk to. You break the law, you pay the price. That's the way I feel. You break the law, you pay the price. My dad was in law enforcement my whole life. I broke the law, I paid the price. Then I paid the price when I got home. It wasn't the law's fault. They weren't picking on me. But we teach our kids dishonor and disrespect. We talk about their teachers. We talk about their principals. We talk about law enforcement. We talk about government officials. We tell them how bad the cops are, how bad the teachers are, how bad the police are, how bad the president is. We teach them dishonor. What we teach them by our actions is you don't have to honor anybody. What we've got to teach them is I don't care. We may not think their teacher's good. We may not think that they got a fair break by that coach. But what we think, we better learn to keep to ourselves. It's time for us to say, you do what your coach says. You do what your teacher says. No, you're not quitting. No, you're not switching. It's time for us to stand up and be honorable so we can teach our kids honor. Another way our kids should go, the way our raising up our kids that they should go and they won't depart from it, we have to teach our kids humility. Humility. Nobody likes to see their kids humiliated, right? Nobody likes to be humiliated. But one thing I've learned about humility, man, is it shows you who you really are, man. It takes you down a few notches. There's some things that are just humiliating, some mistakes I've made that humiliate me. But humbleness, humiliation, being humble, puts us in the same accord with God. It makes us usable. It makes us pliable. So the Bible tells us that God opposes the proud, but He gives His grace to the humble. What does that mean? That means if I'm humble, then God will do for me and through me what I am incapable of doing for myself. But God opposes the proud, right? We have to teach our kids humility. We have to teach our kids how to lose, how to be good sports, how to fail forward. You know, some of the greatest teaching times you can have with your kids is when they fail. You can teach your kids how to handle failure and disappointment and heartbreak, and you can teach them to fail forward. You can teach them how to become stronger people. You can teach them how to understand that sometimes you're going to come out on top and sometimes somebody else is. But if we are able to learn to celebrate those who defeat us, then we get twice the joy. Think about that. If we're in competition and you win and I lose and I get to celebrate your victory, that's twice the joy because I'm going to celebrate mine. We have to learn to be good losers. We have to teach our kids how to lose well. I think if we could teach our kids integrity, we would have kids that grow up and become people who are honorable, people who are successful in life. Integrity, honesty to a fault, where there's nothing deceptive in them. I know a lot of your kids, and I know a lot of them, man, they just won't tell the truth. And I wonder where they get that. We have to learn And we have to teach our kids honesty and integrity. One of the things Celia always teaches our girls is when you mess up, fess up. Because if you mess up, you're going to get in trouble. But if you don't fess up, you're going to get in double trouble. We have to learn to be honest. You know, there is freedom in honesty, right? Like if we have lies and deceptions going on, isn't it so uncomfortable to live? We don't know who we can talk to, what they know, who knows what, when we're going to be found out, and it's just all over us all the time. But man, honesty and integrity. People of your word, man, don't you want to raise your kids to grow up to be men and women of their word? When they say something, they do it. They follow through. They can be asked anything, and they're going to be straight up honest with you. If we can throw these few things together, man, and then there's all kinds of teachings in the Bible, but I'm just talking about the things that I see that are missing in our world today. Personal responsibility, honor, integrity. Man, this is the way we want our kids to grow up, right? But listen to me close. They learn by watching you. Our kids learn more by watching us than they'll ever learn by what we say to them. We have to bring up our children the way they should go. And when they're old, man, chances are they're not going to depart from it. I think if I could tell you anything out of what I've talked about today, if you could take this one thing home, I want you to take this home. Take responsibility for your life. Quit blaming God. Quit blaming your parents. Quit blaming everybody in your life. Quit blaming the system. Look at your life. Take responsibility and make the changes. If you don't like where it's going and you don't like where you're at, change it. Nobody's going to do it for you, trust me. Nobody's going to do it for you. You may say, well, I'm 40 years old, man. I don't want to start over. Why not? You're only halfway. Better to start over now than to waste 30 more years going down the same path, isn't it? Maybe your kids are in their teens, and man, when you guys get in teens, you're just like, man, I just got to survive. Don't survive. Don't quit. I'll tell you something, man, teenagers, they're worth the fight. Your teenage kids are worth the battle. Buckle down and go to war. Win. You can win. Let them know you're going to lose. Just tell them up front, you will lose this. You are going to become the person that I say you're going to become. My parents never quit. Ever. I mean, till yesterday. They never stop. They're my parents. They want the best life possible for me. Man, if we quit on our kids, isn't that just like saying, man, I don't care about you. Go do whatever you want. I don't love you anymore. No, man, I ain't never going to quit. Ever. I'm going to be up in my kids' business from now on. They may take it. They may not. It doesn't matter. It ain't going to stop me. I will win. And it's good for them to learn to lose like that, right? Guys, I can't tell you how many people I deal with every day who are where they're at because they refuse to take responsibility for their own lives. Man, I mean, it gets sad the older you get. You're 40 years old, man. You're still blaming your parents. Dude, I have to, like, hey, man, you're 40. Grow up. You got to take a responsibility. I know bad things happen to everybody. Everybody's got a sad story. But you're 40, man. Take some responsibility. If we can do this, our kids will be better off. We will be better off. Our families will be happier. We'll be so much more productive in our lives. We'll be people that can be an example in our world today. And it's going to make you weird. I understand that. That's not the way our world works. It's just not the way our world works. But shouldn't we kind of be the opposite of that anyway? You guys stand with me. I want to pray for you.